Welcome to the Common Sense Show. Welcome in. Today we're talking about businesses. A new survey revealed that business owners are still in survival mode after all of this time, even since the pandemic. Then we'll be talking about how the Washington state tax shock is coming. There are going to be massive tax hikes in Washington state, which could definitely affect small business owners. And then I'm bringing back a segment that I used to have about 2 years ago or so on this podcast. Today, we're bringing back fantastic failures, which is when we talk about fantastic failures of businesses or products, what we could have done better, what the businesses could have done better to not fail, what the products or services could have been instead of going on a business. I'm Micah. This is the Common Sense Show. Hang on. Let's get this thing cracking. And so many small business owners thought that, since COVID was over and we are a few years past COVID, no doubt that they are going to just kind of pick up where they left off in 2019. And for a lot of small businesses, that has not been the case. In fact, they are having a hard time falling, actually regaining their footing. And there was a recent survey done by KeyBank that surveyed small business owners, just talking about how they are with the state of their businesses, how they are feeling about business right now. Um, you know, Generally speaking, like the nature of business, etc. And the results are interesting, actually. There's some mixed reviews about how they're actually feeling about business. By the way, you may hear it in my voice, I have a bit of a cold. And if you see some smoke, I have a diffuser on my desk right here. Or if you're listening, you can't see the smoke. Um, I have a diffuser on my desk, and it's just kind of pumping this air, pumping diffused air. It's being diffused with eucalyptus oil. So a little bit of distilled water, eucalyptus oil, and I'm feeling just fine, or he's at least pleasant enough to do this this podcast. Which, if this was like 24 hours ago, I probably wouldn't have been. But anywho, I want to get to the study. I want to talk about some key aspects of this study that may be concerning, may not be concerning to you. But generally speaking, how the respondents of this survey were feeling about the state of small business right now. So it said that small business owners face a tough year battling rising costs and tariff policies. KeyBank's 2025 small business survey found that approximately 1 in 4, 1 in 4 is 25%, but this is 23% of small business owners are stuck in survival mode and aren't focused on long-term planning. Additionally, almost half, 46% of small business owners feel that their performance fell short of expectations in 2025. Now, one of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do is to be a business owner. Excuse me, not just a business owner. Yes, I am a business owner, but I also am a business coach. So I'm actually working in the trenches with business owners a lot. And I can tell you that 2025, for a lot of them, has been fairly difficult with uncertainty, with the constant flow of changing regulations, and within the last few years there have been, and if you've watched the show or listened to the show for some time, you know that I've covered things like minimum wage increases, certain tax increases, and that it has made life difficult for small business owners, Main Street business owners. And so I can tell you for a fact, that certainly is the case, that small business owners that I've observed, that I've worked with, and that were in this survey are feeling the squeeze when it comes to small business. Um, this article continues. It says still 40% of small business owners are cautiously planning ahead for the business's futures. Another 46% say they are certain they could cover 1 month of operating expenses if an emergency arose, down just slightly from KeyBank's fall 2024 business survey. 49% suggesting that they are preparing for stability and sustainability despite uncertainties. Even with an extra cushion of expenses saved, half of small business owners say that top concern is inflation and rising costs, far outpacing factors like competition, 33%, cash flow, 25%, and labor shortages and hiring challenges, 22%. In fact, a quarter, 25% of small business owners are increasing prices for customers in light of recent tariff and rising costs. Cybersecurity also remains a key issue for small business owners, with 41% citing payment fraud as their top concern, followed by phishing and email scams, 27%, and identity theft. So, I look at this and there is a conflagration of multiple issues facing small business owners at the moment. Of course, chief among them is the fact that small business owners are at tremendous risk of cybersecurity issues, cybersecurity attacks right now. In addition to that, there are the rising cost of goods, but then labor. Now, labor shortages, trying to find good workers, has been a problem actually since COVID. So this is not a new issues. Like about 2021, 2022, at least for the last 3 years, 3.5 years, I can tell you from my experience in business and my experience working with my clients who are in business owners, this has been a concern for a few years. So this isn't really new for business owners. I know that they're feeling the fact that they're having a hard time finding labor, and unemployment is so low, and having a hard time finding labor is a problem because it makes a business not able at times, depending on the business, to be able to meet the demand of the consumer. So there are some drawbacks to having super low unemployment, which is that there are quite a few bodies to choose from, right? Like you don't really have a big of employment pool as you normally would during higher unemployment where multiple people are going for a job. But we've all been, as business owners, like contending with that for a bit. But the fact that half of small business owners say that their top concern is inflation and rising costs, outpacing other factors, is an issue. Of course, it's easy to say that small business owners should, increase their purchasing power to drive down cost, to bring up supply at their business so that it makes it buying materials cheaper. But not all businesses have the cash flow to be able to do that. In fact, a lot of small businesses are just kind of hanging on by a string. So one of the things that this article brings out is that there are really important issues that small business owners at the moment have to deal with. And I don't know if they're pessimistic about where the market is, they meaning small business owners, or they're just aware of the challenges that are happening at the moment, right? So from my perspective, when I see small business owners talking about tariffs and the cost of goods going up and the cost of delivery and the inability to actually find employees, what I think about is the fact that small business owners, like we are all in the same pot, right? We're all trying to find an answer for a challenge that persists. And from my perspective, I would love for small business owners to be able to find the answers to the questions like how they can control costs. But, unless you source your supplies from way upstream, if you're buying your supplies retail, that's a big problem. If you have a product-based business, in a service-based business, of course, it's hard to find labor, people to work, especially if you're in the trades or like, you have service-based business. So that means that that's going to drive up the cost of labor as well, right? Because it's supply and demand. If there's a lower amount of people on the market to actually be able to sell their labor to you, then it's going to be hard to find people to actually to come and work for you. So that is a big issue. The other thing that I find interesting here is that the cost of goods is a higher concern for small business owners than this article says cash flow, 25%. So 25% of small business owners indicated that cash flow was a big concern for them. And the survey, what's interesting to me, excuse me, is that small business owners have cash flow concerns, but the costs are outpacing that. Of course, the cost of goods, of material or inventory is definitely something that can reduce cash flow. But one of the things I coach about with my business coaching clients is about how to implement a cash flow management program. And no matter if you are a solopreneur and you're a one man or one woman business, or whether you just have like a couple of employees, it is crucial, in my opinion, to be able to establish good cash flow procedures. Like, what are you going to do with the money that you get it? Are you going to use the envelope system, right? So part of the envelope system would be, let's say that you are a product or retail based shop and you have to put together a couple of materials, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever, to make an end product that your consumer buys. What you want to do, in my opinion, is when you get a payment from a customer that may require a deposit, you take some of that money, you put it to the side so that the people coming, so that you have the money for the materials that you can buy it without tapping in to the cost of other costs, right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to take money from other parts of your business to start paying for the other parts of your business that are either underperforming or that are undercapitalized. To me, that's a recipe for disaster. And you see this all the time. I see this all the time in in business, right? Like, especially in the construction business. I can tell you, I remember I knew a guy owned a construction business, and he was always trying to get paid ahead of time so that he can pay his current obligations, right? So he would have to sell jobs ahead of time to pay for his current expenses that he had when he was running his own construction firm. What's the problem with that? Well, it's kind of like, frankly, pensions or Social Security, right? It's like eventually you're going to get to the point where there's a job that's going to require you to be able to fund. You're going to get to the end of the line, and then at the end of the line, you're always going to be behind unless you make a decision that you're going to be super strict with how you spend your cash flow. One of the reasons why small business owners are not really great at cash flow management, in my opinion, is because they end up using the cash flow that they get from their businesses for personal expenses and living expenses. So, and I get it. Like, you have to do that often. Like, you have to live, right? You got to pay your rent. You got to pay for your kids. You got to buy food for your house, insurance, whatever, all those things. But you need to establish a budget in your business to be able to work around the cash flow issues that may come up. And I've just seen it. Oftentimes, small business owners are just relying on gross revenue to pay all of the expenses downline in their business. And what they don't do is they do not account for all the other expenses that they may have coming up in their business, and it's a miscalculation. And it's simply a matter of tracking, in my opinion. It's not really difficult to do cash flow management. I think that what's more difficult is understanding how to sacrifice the life that you used to have. So let's say that you came over from working for a company and now you're running your own business. You used to work in corporate, you're used to a certain salary, you're used to a certain amount of money in your business, and you just don't know how to live on less while you're running your business, right? You just don't know how to kind of constrain yourself to having to give up temporarily part of the lifestyle that you had before, I would say, and that is an issue, right? Like, the only way that you can properly manage do cash flow management is if you kind of put the brakes on something. Something in your business has to have the brakes put on. So, with 72% of small business owners, according to the survey, very concerned that the changes in what they perceive as upcoming legislation around around payments and tariffs and all these things, um, that has a cause for concern for Main Street. But here's the good news, though. Here's a bit of good news, because I don't want to be all doom and gloom. Is that 80% of the small business owners are positive that the future will get better. And for 2026, we certainly need that to come become actually reality. But how as small business owners do we make it a reality? We have to keep pushing and organize ourselves and be better at structuring our businesses so that they can overcome the challenges that are out of our control, right? Run a lean ship, increase your automation. There's so many AI tools, AI agents, things that actually can do work for you, where you can actually operate your business with a smaller workforce if you can. That I think that would be helpful. And there are a lot of free or low cost resources for business owners to be able to actually, understand AI, right? Like, I think that being resistant to where AI is going for businesses, for small businesses, is it can come back and bite you in the butt. And you don't want that to happen, right? When everyone around you is moving towards something, then you should too. Like that's kind of it's just what's going to happen. You got to stay on top of it. So here's a question. So if 46% of business owners have at least 1 month operating expenses, according to that survey, why are so many still playing defense? Right? Like, think about that. If 46% of business owners have 1 month of operating expenses, which is not a lot, because if you don't have a good sales month and you only have 1 month of operating expenses, what's gonna become of your business, right? It's so important for you to. One of the things I do is I jump on everything, like newsletters. I'm kind of revealing all my secrets to you, but I think it's important. I think you should kind of glom onto this, which is SBA.gov, right? Sign up for the newsletter. See what's happening in the small business world. The National Small Business. It's the NFIB. They deal with I think it's the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and they are an arm of the small business world. They're located in DC. I think they do a lot of advocating for small businesses, but they also have a newsletter, and it just kind of lets you know what's happening. As of today, the Fed cut the rate by, I think, a quarter of a point today, which is a big deal, especially if your business is in real estate. It might mean that you might see a corresponding change in mortgage rates. They may come down a bit now that the rate got cut a quarter of a percent. But understanding I can tell you that one of the biggest things I've seen with working with small businesses is that business owners is that they don't really understand, they don't know how to put the pieces together of the environment, right? It's so important to understand the environment and what's going on and how it affects your business. It's not about delving into politics or anything like that. It's about understanding who's playing what cards so that you know what's coming down the pike, right? And you can make adjustments ahead of time. And that is something I think that's going to be super important. So all the small business owners have to be responsible and adaptable when it comes to diversifying our revenue streams. Stop waiting for people to come with some kind of policy or something to implement in our businesses that we feel like might save us. If you want to be successful in business and you want to survive kind of tumultuous times, it's important for you to kind of create your own path, create your own mechanism, your own design, your own plan, your own strategy for how you're going to deal with these times before they come. The pandemic crushed a lot of businesses. I mean, it even like I had to close my business for 6 months during the pandemic, and it was terrible. I mean, I found ways around it because as a small business owner, I always thought that it was important to be adaptable. But you know, it was tough, man. I had to come out of pocket a lot of money before I was able to figure out, how to earn revenue with my business close and kind of stay on top of that. But if we can, as small business owners, survive COVID, if you're watching this and you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner, and you survive COVID, you can certainly survive the inconsistencies of the market right now. Yeah, I have confidence in you. So you just got to put together a plan. That's all. All right. So I want to talk about Washington State, talking about things that change and things that are coming up. Um, there are big changes happening now in Washington State. So, according to the National Federation of Independent Businesses, that nonprofit I told you about, it says that the state is about to drop the largest tax increase in its history. So, if you're watching this and you're from Washington D.C., excuse me, Washington State, then you have some taxes coming to you. So let's see. Okay, here's information from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. Here's what it says. It says that Washington State Main Street entrepreneurs are bracing themselves for the impact of the largest tax increase in state history, which takes effect next month. Several sources. Now, this was a press release that was released on September 9th. So this means that next month, meaning October, is when everything goes into effect. Several services will now be subject to sales tax and business and occupation B&O tax hikes, and surcharges will affect nearly every industry, so consumers may soon see prices at the register begin to rise again. The NFIB is calling on lawmakers in Olympia, Washington, to work with us on a meaningful adjustments to the small business tax credit to stave off some of the worst impacts of this tax package on our small businesses. It says NFIB's monthly Small Business Optimism Index is the gold standard measurement of America's small business economy. Used by the Federal Reserve, congressional leaders, administration officials, and state legislatures across the nation, it's regarded as the bellwether on the health and welfare of the Main Street enterprises that employ half of all workers, generate more net new jobs than large corporations, and gave most of us the first start in our working life. The typical NFIB member employs between 1 and 9 people and report gross sales of about $500,000 a year. So, in August, there was a notable improvement in overall business health. When asked to rate the overall health of their businesses, 14% reported excellent, up 1 point. 54% reported it as good, up 2%. 27% reported the health of their businesses as fair, down 4%, and 4% reported it as poor. Excuse me. The percentage of small business owners reporting labor quality as the single most important problem for the business remained at 21%, continuing to rank as the top problem. I've seen this in my businesses where labor is a problem. The quality of labor, it's not just labor. The quality of labor has, of course, effectively gone down. Let's dig into the tax hike a little bit more. So here are the taxes that are going up in Washington State. So the B&O, business and occupation tax, okay, will increase, and new surcharges are coming for that. Sales tax expansion, so sales tax is going up in Washington State. Capital gains and estate tax modifications are going up in Washington State. The elimination of certain tax preferences are getting eliminated. New taxes on electric vehicle credits and luxury items. So now a luxury item tax. I don't know what a luxury item is in terms of like what the government considers a luxury item, but um, there's a new tax coming for that. And of course, business and occupational tax classification for payment card processing. Looks like that tax is going up as well. So if you're in Washington State, yeah, be careful. It says there's also going to be a progressive tax rate structure for the service and other business activities classifications. In addition, a new 2.1% rate. The rate tiers will be based on the entire gross income of the affiliated group rather than the taxpayer's own gross income. Specifically, the rates will be 1.5% taxpayers whose affiliate group gross income was less than $1 million in the preceding calendar year, or who are required to pay the advanced computing surcharge pursuant to RCW. 1.75% taxpayers whose affiliate group gross income was 1 to 5 million the preceding calendar year, and then 2.1% taxpayers whose affiliate groups gross income exceed $5 million. So it looks like this tax hike is actually going in effect across the board to multiple different income levels, and to up to and including people who are in the middle class, so under $1 million. So it says beginning January 1st, 2026, there will be a brand new surcharge on businesses with Washington taxable income exceeding $250 million. Most people probably won't have to deal with that. The new surcharge imposes an additional 0.5% tax on amounts over $250 million. The Department of Revenue estimates that more than 400 businesses will be subject to the new surcharge. And for the purposes of calculating $250 million, certain Washington taxable income is exempt, which it would be interesting to find out which income is actually exempt. They're limiting the investment income deduction, so that's going to be amended down. And I don't see, I'm trying to find what the sales tax is going to be, but I can't. So listen, if you're watching this and you're in Washington State, or you know someone who runs a business in Washington State, let them know that their taxes are going way up. All right. So probably 2 years ago, I had a segment on my show. And that segment was called Fantastic Failures. Now, here's the thing about Fantastic Failures. It was supposed to be about businesses or products or services that failed that basically failed. And what I think that could have done better, what I think that the executives, business owners, or whomever, or the product management team could have changed in order to make it more appealing to customers. So every week or every time I do the show, I'm going to break down a fantastic failure. What a business team could have done better to prevent the failure, what I would have done to prevent it. So for the first time in 2.5 or 3 years, we are bringing back Fantastic Failures, and I'm going to let you know who the company is right after this. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a story of hubris on steroids. We're talking about a company called Quibi. Have you ever heard of Quibi? Let me show you my screen. Quibi. Here it is. This is what it looks like. It's called Quibi. Quibi. Or Quibi, maybe. Maybe it's Quibi. This is what the logo used to look like right here. Quibi was supposed to be a snack version size of videos. I think it was like the 2021 version of TikTok or Instagram or whatever the case is. Quibi launched in April of 2020. So what was happening in April of 2020? All together now? Yeah. What was it? 2020, April 2020. What was it? Yes, that's right. COVID, right? The pandemic. It launched with 1.8 billion in funding. And you had Hollywood bigwigs at the helm. What was their pitch? Their pitch was that Quibi was a bite-sized premium video of up to 5 to 10 minutes in length where it would give you episodes that you can consume on your phone. Sounds clever, right? But it wasn't. Here's why. Okay, first, Quibi was built for commuters sneaking content between stops. Unfortunately, it was launched during the pandemic. Here's the thing. If Quibi was created for commuters like going into work during the pandemic so that they can kind of go on their phone and look at these 5 to 10 minute videos to distract them, what's the big issue with that? Well, one of the biggest issues was that nobody in the US, except for essential workers, especially around this time, was taking any public transportation relatively anywhere, right? Nobody was going out to work. Most people were working from home, remotely. Most people were out of the office, which caused a spiral in commercial real estate. It became a big mess. You probably remember that. But Quibi was built for commuters who wanted, the aim was to get people going to work to like kind of like consume this. The Motley Fool pointed out that Quibi's model collapsed because people were home, binge watching, not on trains. I know that I was doing all my work from home, from the house. And in between work, of course, there's Netflix and YouTube and Instagram, right? All these things existed at the same time as Quibi. So imagine entering a space of short video where people can kind of come in and watch these episodes of 5 to 10 minutes long of length, but then nobody is actually, it doesn't have the traction because people would rather spend time watching other stuff. Quibi was a service designed for mobile on-the-go streaming, which fine, fair enough, because a lot of people got to the streaming game. But the problem is that it wasn't really a brand name. It wasn't really like a household name. So it was just a failure to adjust to launch timing, right? So I don't know. How I think about it is I'll start with this point about what I would have done better. One of the things I would have done better is I would have probably delayed the launch. If I got 1.8 billion in funding, the difference between launching in 2020 and then maybe in 2021, when you started seeing some easing of restrictions, could have been night and day. Secondarily, if they had some kind of proprietary software, algorithm, or technology, another way to get Quibi to actually be worth it would be to integrate it with maybe another short form video platform, right? The second thing that went wrong with Quibi was that Quibi insisted on being mobile only, right? It didn't even support Roku, Amazon Fire. Like, if these are supposed to be 5 to 10 minute episodes specifically of some kind of show, so why wouldn't you include in your distribution platforms like Roku or Amazon Fire, Amazon TV? Why not try to partner with some of the other streaming services? One of the things that I would do better is I would have tried to create a sphere of influence and partnership with people who were similar to me so that I could have gotten my distribution across the board. We live in the age of social media. YouTube, which you're currently watching this on, podcast, which you're also listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. These are all distribution platforms. And so it's critical that, like, if you're going to go this route, that you have some kind of, no myopic view of how you want to distribute your platform. The third thing that they did wrong was the content quality. They spent a fortune on content, but the viewers hated it. The critics had panned the shows that there was no must-watch killer show, that they cut feature-length films into 10-minute chunks, making the viewers experience feel choppy and disjointed. And so people didn't know whether Quibi was a streaming service or a food delivery app. And then 70% of survey respondents thought it was a food delivery service. Interesting. After seeing its ads. So that's the big marketing fail. Usually when you're introducing something into the marketplace, there needs to be a big, broad swath of education. So if you have a product, if you have a service, and you're trying to get mainstream appeal for your product or service, and you are you're a business and you're kind of thinking about it strategically or logically, you want to try to educate the people, the marketplace, about who you are, what you have, and why they need you. Define your market, who all those people were staying home anyway, and then you need to be able to actually, frankly, have them not see you as a food app if you're delivering entertainment. It's kind of crazy that people thought that this company was a food delivery service based off of how it looked. I mean, I guess Quibi kind of does sound like a food delivery app, but I mean, I think if your whole point is to deliver episodes that viewers will connect with and like and want to come back and want to binge, and people are saying that the one thing that your content is supposed to be known for, it lacks in quality, then nobody's going to pick it up. Nobody's going to want to do it. So Quibi burned $1.8 billion because its executives believed they could dictate consumer habits instead of listening to them. They launched a mobile-only product during a lockdown, ignored platform compatibility, and produced lackluster content. The reality is that the market rejected them, and for good reason. It was just a big fail. And now that I think about it, I think I kind of remember Quibi being on like showing up as ads on my phone, like in the App Store. I think I kind of remember, and I think I remember that like purple logo that they had, but there was really no incentive for me to click on it either. I just didn't know what it was. So again, what could Quibi have done differently instead of launching this streaming 5 to 10 minute episodic streaming app during the pandemic, designed for commuters, and how could it have been made better? Well, the first thing I think about is it could have been made differently, as I explained earlier, by delaying the launch. The second thing that it could have been made better by was kind of focusing on more than just people commuting to work, because that wasn't going on at the moment during COVID. It could have really built, if there was a lot of Hollywood buzz around this app and trying to get Hollywood, the Hollywood actor type to kind of like endorse it, why wouldn't they just use those same people to make really good content and hook someone? I mean, you have $1.8 billion. You can't pay Denzel, Jennifer Aniston, or someone of that ilk to be able to make a 10-minute episode of a show to hook them in. It seems kind of crazy to me. And then, of course, test the concept with users who actually do spend time streaming, right? So there are plenty of people out there who stream, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 minutes a day, like an hour, 2 hours a day of YouTube. I know I watch a lot of YouTube every single day. And I think that when there's a viable option that can compete with it, you want to see it, right? But by not having good quality, by not leveraging the people who were talking about it, like the Hollywood folks that were talking about it, and having them put on like these great shows, by launching it as a commuter thing when nobody's kind of going into work, they kind of basically just failed. They are a fantastic failure. And I think that it provides plenty of lessons, as I just espoused to you, when you're running your business. So, all right, that is it. That's the show. I appreciate you for tuning in. I just want to remind you that you can get every week I send an email out with what I call small business mastery tips. Teaches you how to run and grow your business, create actual business processes, systems, and just a different way to think about business. And I send it every Tuesday, every single week. If you've enjoyed this show, make sure you like it because it helps YouTube understand that this show is kind of good for the masses. Like and subscribe to it. And until next time, I'm Micah, and I'm just trying to bring common sense into the business world. I'm out of here. Peace.